In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build an AI chatbot for your website that would enable your users to communicate with your content using a standard chat interface or using a voice mode so they could talk to your content and have a real conversation with it, or even open it as a knowledge graph in InfraNodus and communicate with it using the visual representation. In this demonstration, I will be using n8n, which is an automation tool, and I'm going to show you how you can build this AI agent and then embed it to your website. And then also a couple of other tools that I developed. One is InfraNodus, that will be the brains behind our experts, and the experts, they will be the books. So basically, I will create an AI expert for every book, and then I will show you how you can connect it to InfraNodus and do that inside InfraNodus. You wouldn't have to set up complex vector storage nodes in n8n. And then I will also show you how you can use our embed widget so that you can then insert this kind of representation widget on your website and then enable your users to chat with your content. As an example, I'm using my own website, polysingularity.com, that I will link to from this video so you can check out for yourself. And I actually have 4 books which I published over the years. And I wanted to give my users an opportunity to chat with this content using a variety of means, like a standard chat interface, or the ability to also talk to it using voice, or even to have the visual representation. So basically what I did is that I uploaded every one of those books into InfraNodus. I created a separate graph for each book. And then I created an n8n workflow where I used an AI agent. And then this AI agent, it connects to 4 different experts. Each expert represents each book. So it's like a small brain, you know. Each expert has its own brain, a knowledge graph of InfraNodus, right? And then when the request from the user comes through this interface via chat or via voice mode, then the AI agent actually decides which expert it's going to use depending on the user's query. So if the user is asking a general question, it's going to query all of them. If they're asking about some specific aspect for which one specific book, like the Special Agent's Manual, for instance, has an answer, then it would consult this agent. I'm going to show you how it works in a second. And then once the answer is generated, then it feeds it back to the chat, and then the user will see it here. So the final version looks something like this. You open the chat and then you say, like, what are those books about, for instance, and then it will consult these different workflows here. And then once the response is generated, so it's going to ask all of those 4 books what they're about, and then give you an answer that's based on all of them. And once the answer is produced, then the user will see what those books are about, and then it can guide their attention to ask specific questions about each book. So for example, here you see it has like an overview of every book. And what's nice about this approach is that if you uploaded just 4 books inside some chatbot agent creation tool, the problem you have is that it will start losing context after a while. Also, it's quite hard to set up because in order to do that with a traditional vector RAG system, you would have to set up a vector database, then upload all these files separately to it. So it's quite complex. And then also the results that are produced are based on RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, that is based on similarity search, whereas in InfraNodus actually searches based on the query. So the way that it works, when the user asks something about the book, it will actually find the part of the graph that relates to the query. Then it will look at all the connections. So it kind of zooms in, looks at all the different connections of those topics, and then it's going to select the statements that belong to all of those relations and feed them back as context along with the response back to the user. So the results are much more precise because the underlying system, it's also sometimes referred to as GraphRAG, has a complete representation of content of each of your book and also the complex relationships inside, as well as a general overview of the main topics, as you can see here. So it has a much richer understanding of your content, and it's especially useful if you want to make sure that no important nuances are missed. And like I said, you know, the use case is that if you want people to talk to your content, that could be interesting. If you have a publishing house, you could upload different books there and have those books talk to the users. You could even upload your favorite books and create an expert for each book and then have them interact with each other. And with the small tweaks that I'm going to show, you can also make those books actually talk to each other, or even contradict each other if you would like to kind of challenge the different viewpoints. So I think it's a really nice approach, and I'm very excited to share it. So first of all, let me show you how it works in n8n. So when you create this workflow in n8n, and I have another video that I will link to here, where I actually explain how that works. But basically, here is a very simple representation. You start with the query. So for example, what are those books about? So when you ask a general query, you see the request comes to the agent, and then it uses the OpenAI model, and then now it's consulting every one of those brains, of the InfraNodus brains, to get a response. Then once it gets a response from all of them, it will combine them using this agent representation, then send it back to the model to kind of summarize. And then once the final result is produced, then it's going to feed back the response that we can see here. So it's exactly what you've seen in this widget that I showed you. Just wanted to demonstrate to you how it works. And what's nice is that once you start asking more specific questions, for instance, can you tell me more about the special agents manual? Look what happens. It comes here. It understands it only needs to consult the special agents manual book, so it's not asking those 3 books. And then the special agent manual graph, which is here, it's actually producing from InfraNodus the response, sends it back to the agent, and then you get the response that is specific to this book. And then you can dive into the specific topics much deeper. So it's a really nice representation in n8n of how this whole workflow works. And like I said, if you would like to see how to build this workflow, I have another video that explains it in more detail, so you can consult it to follow detailed tutorial. But what I can show you now is that basically it's very simple. You create a chat trigger node inside n8n, then you create AI agent, you connect it to the model, and then you need to connect simple memory. So that's another node available in n8n that allows you to keep memory of the conversation. And then for each of the experts, so you decide how many you want to have, don't add too many, maybe a few. You actually create like a special HTTP tool from InfraNodus that makes a request to the InfraNodus API, and that node you will just need to change the authorization to your key, and then you specify which graph in InfraNodus that you already have you need to query. And in order to create this graph, you can actually do it inside InfraNodus. You just add a new graph, so you go to the apps, and then you can upload any files, or you can import from a lot of different sources. So you can really have all kinds of content here. So once you import this content, you will have it as a graph, and then the name of this graph, you just copy this into the name of the node here, and then you can use it as an expert. So it's a very simple setup, no need to have vector stores and embeddings set up, and you don't even need to use OpenAI API keys for that. So it's a very easy flow. Now, once it's ready and you have it set up like this, each book, it is an expert. So I have one that is the Special Agents Manual. It's this one here. So this is that book here. I have it there as one expert. Then another one is Waves into Patterns. So again, in InfraNodus, it's another graph, which is available here. Waves into Patterns. I just copy the name and add it into the name of that tool. And by the way, this template is available to you online through n8n community. So I will leave a link to it also, so you can reuse the same pattern here. So you would just go and only change the name of the graph that you want to query here. And then of course your own authorization key here, okay, through the authorizer. And then add 2 more books here. The Flow and the Notion is the 3rd book, and the Polysingularity Letters book is the 4th book. Now that we have this agent set up, we can test it using the internal chat of n8n, and once we verify that it works, what you should do in order to expose it to the outside world, you need to double click here, and then you make this into embedded chat, because by default it's a hosted chat, so it's just a web page. So you need to make it embedded chat, all right? And then you copy this chat URL, and then you go to the special tool that we developed that's called popupchat.dev. I will leave a link to it below, and you just paste this n8n chatbot webhook to this field, right? So what this does, it actually generates for you this kind of widget that you can add via a JavaScript or iframe to any website, And basically it gives you these options. So chat conversation is gonna go to n8n. You can also specify how you want it to be called. You can say just chat or voice. And then the next one is voice. And now I will show you how you can also do a voice agent here. So the voice agent, we use Elevenlabs for it. It's a popular tool, and they have this thing that's called conversational AI that basically allows you to build voice agents that work something like this. You just click on a button, and then you just speak to it, you say something to it, and then it's going to generate a response for you. So basically, it's kind of like the ChatGPT voice mode. It doesn't work as well, but the cool thing about it is that you can embed it anywhere you want. So you can really use it with your own content. And to set up this conversational agent, you just need to open the new agent. So you create a new agent in Elevenlabs, and then you choose the language. First message. In the system prompt, you can write that when you receive a user's message, you need to ask something first just to verify that you're looking into the knowledge base. Then forward the user's message without any changes to the knowledge base tool. And this is the key thing. So we say that there is a tool that is available to this agent. And this knowledge base tool agent is actually a webhook to another n8n flow, which I'm going to also link in the description to this video. And that n8n flow is interesting because it's basically the same thing as this one. The only difference is that this flow is not exposed via a chat node, but via a webhook node. So let me just show you how that would work. I save that flow, and then I have the voice agent here with Dimitri's books, right? So these are my books, the voice agent. The only difference is that instead of the chat, I have the webhook, and the webhook is available here. So I just copy that webhook, and I will use it in my knowledge base tool. So what I do in Elevenlabs, I create a new tool, custom tool, and then once it's created, I'm going to have a setup like this. I just need to say that, okay, you need to post the request to this webhook, which I have here. And in the body, you need to add the LLM prompt into the prompt field. You add the LLM prompt. And also you need a session ID because you want to save the conversation with the user. Okay, so you just add these two values, and this I will have also in the tutorial as well, describe in detail. And then what happens here is that you have the knowledge base tool available. Then you have the description of that tool available here, that when you receive the user's message here, without any changes, forward it to the knowledge base tool. So it's going to query this workflow from n8n to get the response, all right? And then once it gets the response, it says here, okay, respond to the user, use exactly the same answer, but make it more suitable for the conversational format by making it more concise, but maintaining the specifics. So it's just better because sometimes the answers are a bit long and you want to shorten them for this conversational voice mode. And once you organized all this, you can set up some other stuff, and then once you save it, you will have a link, and you just paste this link here. So that will have your agent ID, and that agent ID is used in the actual embed code. And finally, if you want to also send users to the original InfraNodus graph of your content, you can either create a link that is sharing like a combination of those different graphs, which you can create here, combine, and then you combine them all together and you have a link. They all need to be public. Or you can also just upload all the books into one graph, and then you just make that one graph available publicly. So you need to make it available as a public graph here, make public. And then once this graph is available as a public graph, you would just get that link here in the sharing mode. And then you go back to the agent here, to the embed widget field, and then you just paste this here. So then basically you have the InfraNodus, the text chat, and the voice chat here. All right, and then you have all of this together here. Change the color of the widget to the color you like. I like this one, for instance. And then you copy that code. And then here I have a WordPress block. So I just went into the settings of WordPress and embedded it into the head of the page. So that's usually like a plugin that you use, or it's available inside the theme. You just kind of use it to also add some tracking codes and stuff like that. And once you add it, when the user loads the page, they will see this. And then they can start chatting with it. So for example, here I have an option to have a chat via text here, which I showed you before. or I can also have a conversation with the voice AI, and I'm going to say after, right, so it's asking me, and then I'm saying, okay, I would like to know what those books are about. So then it's telling me it's consulting its knowledge, and then it's thinking, and then it's going to provide a response. I don't think I have the audio forwarded right now, so you will not hear it, but basically it would just be sending the response via voice, and then you hear the response instead of having to read it. So that's quite a nice approach, and it works really nicely. Now it's answering my question. Maybe you can hear it a bit.
Global change, while the flow in the Notion book focuses on shape, time, and self-realization. The Waves into Patterns book examines dynamic
this one
states
here,
of equilibrium. And the Special Agent's Manual book
this one here
explores human agency within these systems. They all touch on themes of innovation, transformation, and balance. Does any of that sound particularly interesting to you?
You see, and then you can start engaging into the conversation and talk to this content. So yeah, I find it's pretty nice, and kind of like the cherry on top of the cake is that the user can actually go and open the knowledge graph with the books and then interact with it using the visual representation. So they can click on a specific topic they're interested in, for example, and ask the AI to summarize this topic and produce some interesting response. So it's pretty cool because, you know, you have all these different modalities through which you can interact with the content, or through which your users can interact with your content. And it can be chat, it can be voice, it can be this visual representation. They can combine them together and learn more about your work. Or if you want to learn more about other people's work, you just upload the different files, which you can easily do in InfraNodus. Like I said, it has multiple import options. You just put like a bunch of files into the same graph or into different graphs if you want them to be more separated. And then each graph you expose through this workflow here, and then it becomes available to your voice agent and your chat agent. So I hope you find this workflow interesting. Let me know if it's clear. If you have any questions, also please leave a comment below the video. I will also link to all the workflows on our GitHub repository, and also to the help article on our portal, so that you can follow it step by step, especially the part with the voice agent, because it takes a little bit of settings to have it up and running. And let me know how it's like using this workflow in your own field, and also if you have some ideas for other workflows you would like me to share with you. Thank you.